everybody for joining us, taking some time, whether you're live with us or you're going to be watching this recording a little bit later on because we will be posting it on our various socials. So welcome, John. Thanks for being here and spending some time out of your day. We're going to be doing this. We're turning over the presentation to Robert. He's going to be talking about what he does and what he specializes in. Turn it over to you, Robert.
Cool. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. So what I do, I'm a lender, but I also own several homes with ADUs, and I'm developing some properties with ADUs as well. So a lot of people reached out to me because there's a big problem that people have when they own homes with an ADU or are building a home with an ADU, and then they want to sell it or refinance, but they can't get an appraiser to give them an accurate value. They come in and say, "Oh, your home's worth $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 more because you built an ADU." And people were ripping their hair out going, "Well, I just spent $100,000, $200,000, even $300,000 to add an entire new residence to this property." And you're saying it's worth what? And it's not true in reality, because if you were to go to sell that, you'll have people, banging down your door trying to buy it, because if you put it on Airbnb or you try and long-term rent it, you're going to cover a large portion of your mortgage, if not more. You've just made a property that will probably cash flow if you were to move out of it and rent out both units. And if you utilize the full extent of the California law, you can basically turn a single family home into a triplex with two ADUs, a junior and a detached, right? So the question is like, well, how do you lend on that? And how do you get an appraiser to give you an accurate value on that? And a lot of appraisers don't do the homework they need to do in order to give you the accurate value. And so that's kind of where I come in for my clients in a situation where there are not enough comps to accurately value an ADU just on a comparable sales analysis. We've got another trick up our sleeves, and we'll have an appraiser put together a multiple point regression analysis. And that's just a complicated statistical mathematics formula. But what it does is it gives an appraiser data to back up a value adjustment. And we're kind of getting into the technical weeds here of an appraisal, but on an appraisal, you'll have certain things that will increase or decrease the value in comparison to your property. So just let's take a very simple example. Let's say you have a 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. And, within a quarter mile, you've got another 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. One has a pool, one does not. Okay. One sold for $550, one sold for $610. So when you're looking at the adjustments on these properties, you'll give a positive adjustment to the property that had a pool in comparison to the one that didn't, because obviously it's valued higher because it has a pool. So there's something called a value grid. So when an appraiser says, "Hey, I found comps," right? Everybody wants to know, what are the comps? Well, my neighbor just sold their house for, $1.5 million, right? But their neighbor might have a palace and you might have a shack, or it might be very similar, right? But whatever the similarities are, there are differences, right? Not every home is exactly the same unless you're in a planned unit development. Often you'll have exact model matches. And so an appraiser is going to look in the value grid and say, what's different about these homes? Is it the condition? Is it the year that it was built? Is it the size of the lot? Is it the square footage? Is it the bed bath count? Is it does it have a pool or not? And does it have an ADU? Very important, right? And so they'll put numbers in here, and these numbers are supposed to be reflective of what's happening in the market. How much are buyers paying more for a home with an ADU versus a home without an ADU? And so appraisers are going to, in some cases, guess, say they'll pay $50,000. Sometimes they'll be generous and say $100. But where are they getting that data? Are they looking at homes that have sold with ADUs versus homes without an ADUs? Well, here comes the big problem, is that in most areas throughout the country, and this is especially common even in high density metropolitan suburbias throughout the country, you have a very, very, very low density of single family homes in any given area that have an ADU. In most cases, it's less than 1% of the homes. So think about Concord, California, for example, where I live. There's 130,000 people as of 2019. 130,000 people. How many homes are in Concord with an ADU? I think it's around 100. So you've got 130,000 people. You've got 100 homes, roughly, maybe a little more than that. When I bought my house, it was 52, and that was just 5 years ago, right? So it's been more popular, so it's grown, but I know it's not that much more. So what is that density? Well, that's an extremely low density. What is that? Like less than 0.1%? So you've got like 0.1%. Let's say you've got 0.13% density, right? Okay, so let's look for comps. Well, appraisers want to see comps in the last 6 months. Maybe they'll go 12 months if they can't find anything. Maybe a really good appraiser is going to go 24 and do time adjustments and time adjust homes to say, well, that home should be worth this amount now if it's sold back in, August of 2019. But that's a lot of work, and a lot of appraisers are lazy and they don't want to do that. So what do? Instead, they go, "Oh, ADU, yeah, 50 grand, right?" And then you get the report and you are really mad as you should be, because your home is obviously worth more than that. Because you put it on the market, people go, oh, these are really hard to find. Why? Because there's only 0.1, there's only 10% of them out of all the homes in Concord. And I really want one because it can make me a lot of money. So anyways, multiple point regression analysis. What is it? Well, it's a statistical mathematics formulation, which you can do in Excel or Microsoft Word. Don't ask me how to do it. It's really complicated. I don't know how to do it, but I hire people that do these, and they'll look back over a 10-year period and they'll see all the homes that sold with ADUs in your area. That's great data. They'll put it together. They'll time adjust those homes. They'll put a lot of data points on this regression analysis. They'll compare those to single family homes that are similar to yours that have sold without an ADU. And they'll be able to put together an adjustment that is backed up by data. So they'll say, okay, on average, if we time adjust all of these comps and we look at all the comps that have sold with ADUs versus homes without in your area over the last 10 years, what is the trend? Well, the trend is 86,000 or the trend is 150,000, but that gives them a value number, both as a percentage and as a dollar amount that they can use to put in the value grid. So instead of getting one of these ridiculous value adjustments for 30 or 40,000, you might get a proper value adjustment. When I did mine and I had a regression analysis put in place, I had a $90,000 positive value adjustment, which for me was great because there was very, very limited data on how much more my home was worth because it has an ADU. And at the time, that gave me what I needed. In a lot of cases, this will give you what you need. I talked to a gal today. She said a lot of the comps are selling for around 825, but I have an ADU. Redfin thinks her home is worth 970, but that's because there's one comp that's kind of an outlier that's polluting the average. That's why these Redfins and these estimates don't give you accurate data, right? But if you go, okay, all the comps are selling for 825, but let's say an appraiser decides that your house is worth 90,000 more like they did mine, what is that going to do for you? Well, that's going to do quite a bit, whether you're selling or getting a cash out refi. And that's typically when you want this value number to come in handy. You want it to be a big bump above what the other comps are that are similar to yours. Kind of like if you were to take a 3-1 and compare it to a 3-2, or a 2-1 and compare it to a 3-2 or a 4-3. You know what I mean? You that's really easy data. You could say, well, there's 2-1s, there's 3-2s, there's 4-3s, and this is the difference of what they sell for, and here's how much more valuable your home is. Boom, right? It's not gonna always appraise like a duplex will, like two houses will on one lot, although that would be nice because that's not what it is technically speaking, but it will give you the maximum amount of value based on real data. Now, there are some areas in the country where you'll actually make less money because you have an ADU. That's becoming less and less popular because a lot of people are waking up to the value of an ADU. And in big metropolitan areas, a lot of the places in California, a lot of the high cost of living areas throughout the country, it's really important and valuable to have an ADU, and people realize that they want that. And, even proves more of the importance as to why we need these regression analysis when there's a lack of data. And this is how we get the value that we need to get the refinances completed and the sales done at the right price.
And so, can you go over again how and when you would want to go and find somebody to do that analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. So we would want to talk to the appraiser. Let's say that somebody comes to me and says, Robert, I want to do a cash out refi on my house. I just built an ADU. Okay, great. We order the appraisal. I call the appraiser. Do you have enough comps to give you data on homes with an ADU and how much they sell for? Yes, we do. Okay, great. We don't need a regression analysis. You're good to go. Let's say, no, there's no comps that have sold recently with an ADU. I don't have data to back this up. I'm going to guess. I'm going to do my best. Okay, stop. I don't want that. We'll put a pause on it. I'll call the appraisal company. I'll say, pause the appraisal. And we'll have to reach out to a professional in the area. Sometimes I have to find them. Sometimes I know the people I can call to do this. And you gotta pay them $800, $1,000. They got to take a day and they got to go through the data, dig through 10 years of research, whatever they need, however far they need to go back to get enough points to put on the regression analysis and get that information. So that's what we'll do. We just have to assess each situation.
So that's a proactive kind of approach. With a lot of people, unfortunately, aren't that forward thinking. They're going to be stuck with an appraisal that has already been done that shows it at that lower value.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So what I would say is don't go to banks that won't do this for you. I'll do this for my clients. Come to me and do it. I mean, I've had people email me and say, hey, can you give me a regression analysis? No, I won't. But if I'm doing your loan and you need it, I will get it for you. But I don't offer this service, right? I just do this for my clients that need it because I know how to get it done. But it's a lot of work. I mean, it takes me hours sometimes to find an appraiser that will do it, get it ordered, get it coordinated. Also, you have to have an appraiser that will take it. So like if you go to B of A, Wells Fargo, some of these big banks, the appraisers are very strict. They'll go, we're not going to consider any outside data. If we get a third party giving us a report, that's not going to influence our report. And so, I mean, I work with a great appraisal management company, and if I send them a report and say, hey, here's data that's been provided by another appraiser, give this to the actual appraiser that's doing the work, they'll use it, and if they don't, I'll say reassign the appraisal to somebody that will, because it's real data. I'm not influencing the appraisal,
Right.
I'm not bribing the appraiser. I'm giving him data to back up his work, and that's what you want. And with some of these big banks, they're too strict; they won't do it. They'll just say, no, you can't give the appraiser anything. You can't give them comps. You can't give them a regression analysis. You can't tell them how much you think your ADU is worth. And so that's why it's really important. So people go and I got a great interest rate through, Bank of the West, but I had to deposit $500,000 and all this stuff. But my appraisal came in $200,000 short. Well, it's worthless then. It didn't really help you, did it? I mean, you gotta have the right people on your team. And so that's kind of how that works.
I want to welcome Julian and Colleen to the conversation. Robert has been talking about multiple points regression analysis and how you can kind of look down through a much larger, broader window of time to analyze the trends and pricing and valuations of your home when it comes to making sure you get the proper value appraisal for your project or whatever it is you're going to be doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I love that you guys set up this topic because I just ran into the same issue. And as soon as I saw the headline, I had to jump in.
Well,
totally.
So if you don't mind, if you give me 1 to 2 minutes to kind of share my story and
Sure.
and kind of discuss some of the pain points that I had. So I recently, so 2017, I purchased a single family residence about a mile away from the new SoFi Stadium.
Wow.
I purchased it in 2019. I started the process and dealing with the city of Inglewood and their tough plan check review process. We finally got it permitted, built it in 5 months as an owner builder. And I doubled the square footage. So the primary residence was 1,130 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. And it had a detached garage. So I maxed it at 1,200 square feet and I was able to do 3-bedroom, 3-bath. So my issue was before I built the ADU, it was appraising at 800,000. After I built it, the highest appraisal that I got was 1 million. So it only increased 200,000, and I spent 220 for the construction costs. So I technically lost $20,000. And before the first appraiser, and keep in mind, I had to do 2 appraisals. The first appraiser would not treat it as a duplex. He only treated it as a single family, and he could only assess the primary residence, which was the front property that was 1,130. So even though I more than doubled the square footage, the only equity that I can pull out was essentially just the appreciated equity through the increased value of the price per square foot, not the added value. And when I tried fighting it, got a second appraiser, though they appraised it as a duplex, but the comps that they were using were $400 a square foot when the comps that I found were at $650, $700 a square foot. And unfortunately, when I tried fighting with the lender, they said, well, you know what, we're going through a third party appraisal company, AMC, and we unfortunately legally cannot select our own appraisers. We cannot have an influence.
You can't. You're right.
So that's where I was, and I unfortunately, because it was a duplex, now I couldn't do 80% LTV. I had to do 75% LTV because it was multifamily. So that's where I got stuck.
Okay, so you went over a lot of things there. Let's kind of dissect that a little bit. So number one is I'm amazed that you got it done as a duplex. They shouldn't have done that because it's not a duplex. It's a single family home with an ADU.
Correct.
It's not a duplex. So that loan might get bought back by whoever sold that. They might get in big trouble for that, but you got it done. I don't know that it helped you per se. The fact that you got $1 million appraisal, I mean, I don't know if that's just a time adjusted appraisal or other comps were selling for 800 and you got $1 million. Is that right?
Yeah. So other properties, the comps that they're using did not have ADUs. They were using duplexes, and obviously because the houses in that area are in such high demand, there's very little properties that were actually sold. everybody's just holding on in that market.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there's very few comps within the 2 mile radius within 6 months.
So this is where the regression analysis really comes in handy, because it's not going to rely on comps. You're going to be able to go back really far in time and see other homes that have sold with ADUs and determine the demand and percentage difference in sales price versus homes with and without ADUs. But in residential real estate, and this is really important, price per square foot is irrelevant. It doesn't scale. So you can't take a 3,000 square foot home and say this sold for $400 a square foot, and a 1,000 square foot home and say this sold for 700. You can't compare those apples per apples. So when you're looking on a value grid, they will give some nominal adjustments based on square footage difference and on bed bath count. But you can't take a home and say, hey, this home down the street sold for 60 a square foot, so mine should be worth X because I have this many more square feet times 660. It doesn't work. It will never hold up. If you look in the way that real estate valuations for residential homes goes, that is not a scalable model, so they don't rely on it. It has very, very little weight. And this is where a lot of people get lost, because it's very confusing. It's important for the cost approach when you look at like the cost to construct, and that's used in an appraisal, but it's not the method that's used to determine value. It's just a supporting method. And it's used in commercial real estate. But commercial real estate is typically looking at from the perspective of what will this rent for per square foot? And so this is where a lot of people get confused. So cost per square foot in residential real estate should be completely ignored, in my opinion. It's nominally important. It's not integrally important. So it should not be the primary factor of consideration. Comps are going to be the biggest thing. If you have a comp that sold for 1,700 square foot comp and a 1,300 square foot comp, and they're both 3.2s, family, and the reason is this, because families that are going to buy houses aren't going into a neighborhood going, we want that house, and because it's 300 square feet more, we're going to pay $600 per square foot more for it. That's just not how they're approaching it. Commercial real estate tenants might look at it that way and say, we'll lease this much more space for this much more per square foot. But you're not getting that technical with residential people. A lot of residential, purchasing families, I guess we're calling that, are going to look at what they need. Do they need 3 bedrooms? Do they need 2 bathrooms? Do they need a bathtub? If you have a living room that's 30% bigger, they may not need that. That's nice, but it's maybe not a consideration. You know what I mean? So this is really important. So it gets more weight placed on it is how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. That's very important, right? Location, sometimes the size of the yard, but that's why all these things factor into a Fannie Mae 1004D residential appraisal. And you have the value grid, and within the value grid, there's a value adjustment for an ADU. And, I'm going to tell you, if you got them to do it as a duplex and give you a $200,000 increase in valuation, you're in great shape. But I think the mistake is that you had them do it as a duplex, because you have a limited loan to value, 5% less cash out when you do it as a duplex, and the rates are worse. So I don't know when you got that. It sounds like it worked out for you, but it would have been better if you could have gotten a regression analysis and done it as a single family home and done cash out that way. That's the value of a regression analysis in a situation where you have a lack of comps that have an ADU. And let me add one more thing to that. The value won't always match what you spent to build it. And that's okay, because the value of an ADU is not so you can turn around and sell it. People don't buy homes, add an ADU and flip them. That's not a great sales development approach, in my opinion. The value of an ADU is so you can hold on to it until you die. I mean, in my opinion, I'm never going to sell my houses with ADUs because they're such a cash cow. They perform so much better than other homes in the area, because the rental market considers them valuable, and that's what you want. So I would worry less about, you lost $20,000. You didn't really lose it because you didn't really gain 200. It's fake money, right? It's equity. You can't go to the bank and take equity out like you can from a checking account, but you can put that ADU on the rental market. You can probably rent it out for more than you can the main home, especially if you double the size and it's brand new. And that's where the value is. So that's kind of what I would focus on if I were you. And then over the long term, you'll be able to get your money back. If you weren't able to recapture all of it through the immediate cash out refi, you got a good appraisal, you got a good scenario. The only downside of that is you had to do it as a duplex, which I'm really impressed that you got a bank to do that. I tried to do that one time, and I'm a lender, and I couldn't do that.
What was your intent? And because you put this really big. You maxed out at 1,200 square feet, and you did a 3.2, which is super impressive. So what was the intent? Because you're saying that you lacked that 20,000, but were you trying to pull? Were you hoping that there was going to be more equity in the property so you could pull some out?
Exactly. So that was my intent: is optimize the appraised value.
Gotcha.
pretty much use a Burr. It's a delayed Burr method, right? Where I add value over a certain amount of years and then do the cash out refi and get all my full investment capital back and then roll it into another project.
Sure.
But yeah.
Did you live in the property or was it an investment only?
You know what? I originally did, and I was able to do it as primary residence. So I got
Good.
very lucky.
So you should be able to get a HELOC up to 90%. There's
Okay.
lenders that do that.
Do you know where I can get it? Because I've been looking.
Yes, I do.
Perfect. All right.
David and I are laughing because we talked about this beforehand. I said I wouldn't talk about it, but I will. I do these HELOCs, but I don't make any money on them. So I absolutely hate them. But I do them for my clients. So I got to figure out a way to make money on these, David. Maybe I should just charge $500. Pay me $500 and I'll do it for you, right? Maybe that's the answer.
That's
I
easy.
have
I'll
access
do
to
it.
these HELOCs up to 90% loan to value. They're great and they're super easy to do. I don't advertise them because they don't pay. The bank that you broker them to does not pay anything. They'll pay you like a $250 processing fee, and it goes to my
it's not worth his time.
And what rates are you looking at? For
It's
HELOC?
like usually prime plus 2% or prime plus 1.5, depends on the LTV and the FICO. It's not bad.
That's
Prime
really
is like
good.
3.25. You're looking around like 5% interest only for 10 years. You know, I have one on my house. I'm about to redo it. So no, it's a great way to access cash. And so a lot of times what we'll do is a refi. We'll max out the cash out on the refi, and then we'll add the HELOC on top of it. People get bundles of cash back. So it's a great way to do it. Or somebody's going to buy a house, put 20% down, do a HELOC, get 10% back, and then build the ADU.
Yeah, Robert, you and I need to collaborate. I'm in the process of building a 4,200 square foot home, and I was looking to do a HELOC. So we definitely need to collaborate. I'm a general contractor and an investor, so
we need to figure out a way to make this legal. Maybe David you hire David as a consultant, pay him a lot of money, and then David can hire me as.
There you go. I just
I
sent you my
gotta figure this out. No, I'm
address.
happy to help. I want people to be able to get access to these types of things.
Yeah,
it's very
no,
important.
and we're out here to support, educate, kind of do whatever we can, because the ADU market, I think right now, is highly convoluted.
It is convoluted.
I mean, there's things out there that we're having to. We're on a group on Facebook. It has a huge numbers, all educational. We want to kind of form this, a meetup, so that we could be a little bit more interactive and a little bit kind of say, hey, this is who Robert works for. This is what he does. This is what I do. But primarily, we're here to educate and answer questions. John, Colleen, is there anything you'd like us to kind of cover? Maybe we can help you with something.
Hi, sorry about that. I was interested in knowing how do you go about finding the appraiser to do that multiple point regression analysis? You just got to start calling appraisers in the phone book, or Googling appraisers, or what was the way to do it?
Robert,
I know appraisers that do it, and I find them and I get them to do it. I mean, that's the simple answer. I don't do it as a service to other people. I do it for my clients. I'm helping you with the loan. Like, if you go to B of A and get a loan, then come to me for the regression analysis. You're not going to get it. If you go to me for the loan, I'll give it to you. I don't mean to sound selfish, but that's kind of how I do it, because it takes a lot of work. You've got to find an appraiser that knows how to do statistical mathematics. And a lot of appraisers don't know how to do that.
He's in Concord, California, John.
Oh, you're up north. Okay.
Yeah. So the challenge. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it doesn't matter. You can do a loan from anywhere pretty much.
No, I can, and I can do it in all 50 states. But the challenge and why I'd be happy to tell people, go do this, go do this. The reason it's so hard is because you have to find an appraiser that studied statistical mathematics. They all had to pass a test that had a little bit of math on it, but not all of them know how to do that formula. It's a complicated formula. I don't know how to do it. I didn't study statistical mathematics. I didn't need to. But the appraisers that do regression reports do this. And if you talk to a lot of appraisers and you say, I want to get a regression report, they'll say, great, good for you. I'm not going to do it. They get kind of mad. I've had appraisers get mad at me when I ask for regression reports, because they go, why would you ask for that? Kind of like, who are you to say that you need a regression analysis, right? But they're great. They're really helpful reports, and you need somebody that knows how to do them. That's why it's hard.
And are you in a situation, John? Are you in a situation, John, where you need one?
No, I will in the future, because I'm looking for properties with the possibility to put ADUs. So you're a contractor, David?
We do panel kits. So we handle the plan set and the panels, so walls, trusses, and the design. We have pre-designed ADU plans on our, you can see them on our website, yimbyadu.com.
Say it, slow down, say it again.
Sure. It's Yimby. So yes, in my backyard.
Yes, in my backyard.
ADU.com.
ADU.com.
So Yimby.
Okay, I'll check it out.
It's a good acronym. I didn't know that was what that was for.
It is.
I was like, what is YIMBY?
Yes, in my backyard.
Nice.
Because you have NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Everybody knows what a NIMBY is.
Yeah.
So this is the turnaround with it. Colleen, did you have any questions?
Hey, Colleen.
Hey, enjoyed what you had to say. I'm just trying to immerse myself in ADU information. My background is sorry if it's echoing here. My father's a licensed architect, and I worked for him my whole life, basically. Had some kids, and now I'm getting back into doing plans for ADUs and just planning. I want to do my own ADU on my own property. My sister's a licensed architect, and she has done a couple ADUs, but I'm really trying to just educate myself on how to, make a living from.
Perfect.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, we're going to be doing a series of these kind of talks. We want to do more of them and try to kind of help spread the word that we want to be a resource for people can kind of ask questions. We'll have, people on like Robert, someone such as myself. My wife and I are in Burbank, and we've already gotten our permits to do a 734 square foot ADU. It's going to be a 1-1. And so we should start construction probably next month. That's when the contractor says we're on the calendar. We'll be documenting, we'll be sharing it. We'll be also inviting people to meet up here to take a look at it. But that's what we're doing. We're just doing it pre-designed plans. So we're not going to be competing with somebody who's going to need an architect or a designer that's going to make sure that everything is Title 24 compliant, which is, some of those codes are just ridiculous. But
they are.
We're in the state of California.
Exactly.
Okay. Did anybody have any more questions? Anything at all ADU you want to talk about? See if you can't stump the panelist.
What's the junior ADU? You can have 3 now. What's the deal with the third one, or what are the size limitations, if anyone knows?
I'll start, then Robert, I'll hand it over to Robert. A JADU is contained within your primary structure. It can be up to 500 square feet. You have some limitations on this. The limitation is that you have to live in that primary structure. So you either live in the JADU or you live in the primary house. It's not like if you had a detached ADU, you could rent out both. You don't have to live on property. But Robert has a lot of experience in JADUs. And the trick that I loved hearing about, getting financing if you have both a JADU and a detached ADU.
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay, so you've got to decommission the ADU. So an ADU, according to Fannie Mae, has several things, but it's got a kitchen, it's got like a bathroom, it's got a sleeping area, right? And so kitchens have definitions, sleeping area have definitions, bathrooms have definitions. A bathroom doesn't have a toilet, it's not a bathroom. The kitchen doesn't have a stove or a refrigerator, it's not a kitchen. The sleeping area doesn't have a bed, it's not a sleeping area. And if it doesn't have any of those things, it's not an ADU. And Fannie Mae does not allow financing on single family homes with more than one ADU.
That's an important point, very important point. Yes. You just said.
So when you have a detached and an attached ADU, number one, you should always find a way to make a connection between the attached ADU and the main home. Because when you open that up, an appraiser can look at it 2 ways. The added square footage can be counted into the gross living area of the square footage, whereas it cannot for a detached ADU. And if you're valuing it as an ADU, they can do an ADU adjustment or a bed bath adjustment if not. But if you've got 2 ADUs, this is more to the question, decommission one of them so that it's not really an ADU. That's all. I had a duplex I did financed back in July of last year, and they had a duplex with an ADU. And duplexes, funny enough, 2 to 4 unit homes are not allowed to have an ADU and get financing. You can't get financing on them. For Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA, they say we will not finance a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex with an ADU. Well, this was a duplex with an ADU, and we put an FHA loan on it. And so when we went to do that, I said, pull the stove out and pull the fridge out. And they did. And what do you know? The appraiser says not an ADU. He gave a good value because it's an extra unit, storage space, office, whatever it is, but it didn't cross the lines for FHA, and we were able to do the financing on it. And then when it was done, they put the stove and the fridge back, and they rented it out. Allegedly, I wasn't aware of that, and that's how they did it.
Can they? It's just the stove and the fridge. So it doesn't matter if there's a sink and cabinets.
There's definitions to it. So a kitchen needs to have a stove and a fridge. Sink, sure, yeah, that's part of the kitchen. But if it's missing one of the primary components of a kitchen, it's not a kitchen, according to Fannie Mae, according to FHA, according to Freddie Mac. And if it's not a true kitchen based on the kitchen definition, and an ADU needs a kitchen, then it's not a true ADU based on the ADU definition, according to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and FHA. And so you've got to kind of deconstruct the, very simply, wheel out the ADU, or wheel out the ADU, wheel out the stove, or wheel out the fridge, and so that's, and are there hookups is kind of the other question. Maybe hide them. I don't know. But I mean, you gotta make it look like it's not an ADU, and it's not that hard to do in some cases. And in some cases, it very well might be. But that's a consideration you have to make when you're adding 2 ADUs on a property. And I'm doing it right now. I didn't know, David, that you couldn't. I just got a junior ADU approved on an investment property. So you're saying I'm not allowed to rent that out?
Not unless you live in one of them.
Oh.
Yeah, and the JADUs have to. That's one thing that Ryan O'Connell covered on his YouTube channel, differences between JADUs.
And that's a California rule?
Yes. It's California code.
That unless you live in the home, you can't rent out the JADU?
If you have a primary unit, the main house, you take a part of it and turn it into a JADU. So you have to live under that roof. You, the homeowner, have to live under the roof.
In order to rent it out?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that. I mean, I live in a house with a JADU, and I bought a house where I'm building a JADU.
Well, who's going to turn you in?
Nobody. That's the thing. Nobody enforces these rules. Where I live, there's a rule against renting out ADUs, but nobody enforces it because everybody rents them out. So
yeah,
these rules are stupid.
No, it's the wild, wild west. The one thing that I want to kind of share is that when people are out there, because I know that, John, you said you're kind of looking into this, is that, and these are rabbit holes that I tend to dive into, is how your ADU is going to be constructed. Let's say it's a detached, not attached, like a JADU would be. But if it's detached, you have the categories of being stick built, which is the Uniform Building Code or Title 24. So that's fairly simple. That's what most people think how something's going to be built. That's what Julian does. He's a contractor. He builds things to the UBC code Title 24. But if you Google ADUs, probably one of the top results is going to be for villa homes. And villa has these cute little designs. Those are not built to Title 24. They do not comply with all of the state's energy requirements. They're built to Title 25, which is a manufactured home. It has pluses because it's built to Title 25 manufactured home. It does not need to have solar on the panels. It also has a lot of other exceptions. The problem with manufactured homes that are Title 25, it is taking about 2 years to get one built. 2 years. And it is, it's just kind of hard to deal with. The third thing that is kind of worrisome are the tiny homes, because they're built to the RV codes. Now, I usually try to tell people that, and their eyes get kind of glazed over, and they tend to nod off, and they're starting to check their phone. But there's a company called Boxable. Boxable is making these things that kind of fold up and are all pretty and, again, sexy and glamorous, because Elon Musk, they say one of their claims to fame is that he has one. But this is just an RV. And if you look at the RV code, the standards for construction is that it is not for continuous habitation. It's not for continuous habitation. And since it's always going to be personal property, which is called chattel, obscure terms, I'm sorry about this, but it's chattel, and it's never going to be recorded to your property. So, for example, if you went to go sell your property and you have this RV ADU on it, the lender's going to say, get rid of it. And so the hard part is that this is such the wild, wild west. Title 24, Title 25, RV codes, and politicians, policymakers are promoting and saying, yes, RVs, tiny homes are allowed, but they don't understand the ramifications long term for the homeowner. So, and it could really screw up if your values, going right back to Robert's whole point and why we're here talking about valuation for appraisals. That could really screw with people if they don't understand it as well as they need to.
You're totally right. Yeah. Chattel financing is really difficult to come by, and the rates are very high and the terms are very restrictive.
There are Land Home is the only institution.
Land Home Financial.
Yes.
That's where I started my career, at Land Home Financial.
So Land Home.
9 years ago this month. Next week, 9 years ago this month, I got hired at Land Home Financial, and they grew into popularity and got successful because they were doing what you're talking about.
Yeah, they'll do construction loans for manufactured home, projects. Construction loans have their own kind of complexities, but there are things that are out there, and that's what we want to be able to do, is just kind of share the resources, try to provide some transparency, some clarity.
What's it called again? Land Home? What's the name of the
Land
company?
Home Financial.
Land Home Financial.
Yeah,
Brad Wade.
Yeah, you can always just put something in the discussions. Say it again.
Okay. No, I said
The sound quality is really bad at Thanksgiving, but we'll put it in there. I'll type it in the chat. Land Home Financial Services.
Yeah, and then we can also
they're out of Concord
on the discussion part of the meetup. So if you go to that and there's anything you want, or you could just put it in a discussion part of the group, saying, "Hey, could you give me that?" And we'll make sure that we get it out to you. Again, we want to just kind of be helpful people. Like Colleen, who's getting back into it, could do some design, and Julian, who's going to hook up with Robert and going to do some fun projects, and John, as you go on your journey to doing this. We want to be do as much as we can for you. Any final questions or any sort of final comments or thoughts before we wrap up?
I have one last question. It's I don't know if it's pertaining to ADU, but I was wondering if SB 9 has impacted your business, and see how what the development landscape is looking like for that, because I've approached a few cities about subdividing single family lots to multifamily, and there's so many restrictions that some of these smaller independent cities are essentially creating their own code to combat the SB 9.
I'll start. So what I've seen, Julian, is that there is still a lack of clarity and definition, and that the HCD, Housing and Community Development, is working on amending or changing the language so that it can be a little bit more easy to enforce, because SB 9 is getting a lot of attention, and jurisdictions are trying to find ways to oppose it. The Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, and a lot of other sort of places are saying that they're against it and that they want to have it repealed. I don't think Sacramento is going to allow that to happen. So I think that SB 9 will stay on the books. It will probably be amended during the next sessions of the State Senate and Assembly to kind of give it a more clarity on how you can execute and do it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's well said. I don't know a lot about it other than I ran into the same problems building ADUs, because with the ADU law and amendment that was passed, a lot of cities and localities didn't even care to study up on it and would try and oppose you at every step. And so you really had to have an authority on your side, an architectural firm or a builder that knew what they were doing, to say, no, you're wrong. Or you had to go ahead and call the HCD or another government agency and kind of get the proof and call them back and go, no, you're wrong. And here's why. And say so. And they didn't like it. So,
and that's what we'll
do. But one thing interesting about that from a financing perspective is we can do a Fannie Mae home style renovation loan with SB 9. So like if you want to add another unit to your home, we can use a Fannie Mae home style renovation loan. And that's important because if you're going to take a duplex or a single family, turn it into duplex, or duplex to triplex, there's bigger loan limits depending on where you go for more units. So like where I live, single family loan limit is $970,000. For a duplex, it's like, I think close to $1.2 million. So if we're going to build a duplex, now we can build up to a percentage of the duplex loan limit. So it gives you a lot of access to cash to do this. And now that it's legal in California, it's doable. So that's nice. You can also do it with ADUs, but it's really difficult because of the Title 24 or Title 20, the solar requirements. A lot of solar companies can give a lender what they need to do this type of loan. And when it comes to the pre-manufactured stuff, you can do it, but it's just a little more technical. But the SB9 is easier to do.
Julian, to your point about having some issues with the cities and the counties, I've been to the California Association of Planners and sat in on multiple sessions with other jurisdictions sending in their planners, and they have HCD walking them through presentations for like a half a day just on what the rules and regulations are. So they're trying to do some outreach, but like you're finding, a lot of people just don't know. What you can do, what we can, what I've done is I'll reach out all the way up to HCD if we're having an issue, and it's not like they're going to go kick them in the butt or anything. They're just going to, HCD will then come back down and respond to them to give them reasons to move past whatever objections they may have had. And they'll help clarify and give them a reason to kind of check that box or to not put that correction notice on there.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, the issue that I was running into, I was trying to acquire a 1 acre lot, and majority of the development in this city was La Habra Heights. They typically only allow these McMansions being built, and this one was 1.7 acres. So I was trying to utilize the SB9 route, and they were capping me at an 800 square foot unit development. I said, "You're going to cap me at 800 square feet when you have 60,000 square feet?"
That would be worth hiring an expert or somebody to help give you some information to.
Yeah.
I want to thank Robert for your time, sir. It's definitely a
Sure.
lot of fun having and being on a presentation with you. I heard
Thank
your
you.
presentation about a month or so ago, and you did an amazing job. So feel
Thank
free
you.
to reach out to Robert, everybody. He's, as you can see, he really knows his stuff. Also, pay attention to the meetup page. We're going to be doing a lot more of these, and if there's any topics you want us to talk about, we'll be happy to bring on an expert, and so we can kind of do that deep dive. So
Great.
thank you, everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks, David.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. We'll see you soon. I'll
Very
look
informative.
out for your another meeting. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. All right, bye-bye.